Okay. Let me open the presentation. Entire screen. Okay. Okay, we completed 2.30. Text 31. स्वधर्मम् अपि चावेक्ष्य न विकम्पितुमर्हसि धर्म्याद्धि युद्धात् श्रेयोऽन्यः क्षत्रियस्य न विद्यते. अर्थात considering your specific duty as a kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles. So there is no need for hesitation. Swadharmer prati, this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Swadharmer prati drishti রাখিলে তুমি আর এই প্রকার ভীত হইতে পারো না, কেননা ধর্মযুদ্ধ ব্যতীত ক্ষত্রিয়ের পক্ষে শ্রেয়স্কর কর্ম আর নাই. And from the perspective of Swadharma, if you view this from the perspective of Swadharma, then you cannot be afraid in this manner, because for Kshatriya there is no activity better than a Dharma Yuddha. There is no activity more beneficial to a Kshatriya than a Dharma Yuddha. Mukta Ubaddha दशाद्वय भेदे जीवेर स्वधर्म द्विविध. मुक्त अवस्थाয় জীবের স্বধর্ম উপাধি রহিত. জীব জড়বদ্ধ হইলে সেই স্বধর্ম কিয়ৎ পরিমাণে উপাধি যুক্ত হয়. In consideration of the two statuses of the jiva, liberated and conditioned, the jiva's swadharma is of two types. In the liberated status, the jiva's swadharma is free from upadhi, material designations. When the jiva becomes bound to matter, then that swadharma becomes to some degree materially designated, becomes connected with material designations. বদ্ধ অবস্থায় জীবের নানাবিধ অবান্তর অবস্থা আছে. সেই অবান্তর অবস্থায় স্বধর্মেরও আকার ভেদ অপরিহার্য. In the conditioned status, the jiva has a variety of interim statuses, and in those interim statuses, the swadharma assumes various forms. This is unavoidable. The point is, when the living entity is conditioned, there is, you can say, a gradation of statuses within the conditioned status of the living entity. There are various species of life, from the demigods to human beings and so on. And we are talking about living entities in bodies where they are responsible for the next life. So this means human beings and higher forms. So within these statuses also, there is a difference in their swadharmas. Within human beings, for instance, one may be born with the guna karma of Brahmana, or he may be born with one guna karma, and he might do something by which his guna karma changes into something else. So there are so now he achieves a different status within the human species itself. So then let us say by guna karma he is a Vaishya, then he has to accept the specific duty of a Vaishya, and so on and so on. This is unavoidable. जीभ जे अवस्थाय मानव शरीरे अवस्थित সেই অবস্থায় তাহার স্বধর্মটি বর্ণাশ্রম ধর্মরূপী হইলেও সুষ্ঠু হয়। When the living entity is situated in when the conditioned jiva is situated in a human body, then when he accepts uh, his specific duty in terms of varnashrama dharma, then it is very proper. অতএব বর্ণাশ্রম ধর্মেরই অন্য নাম স্বধর্ম। Therefore, another name of varnashrama dharma is itself swadharma, specific material duty. ক্ষত্রিয় স্বভাব প্রাপ্ত ব্যক্তির পক্ষে যুদ্ধ অপেক্ষা আর কি শ্রেয় হইতে পারে? For a person who has attained the conditioned nature of a kshatriya, what can be more beneficial than war? These points are similar to the points that come up in Rasika Ranjan, in Vidvat Ranjan, and Prabhupada has reflected that here. There are two kinds of swadharmas, specific duties. As long as one is not liberated, one has to perform the duties of this particular body in accordance with religious principles in order to achieve liberation. When one is liberated, one's swadharma, specific duty, becomes spiritual and is not in the material bodily concept. In the bodily conception of life, there are specific duties for the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas respectively, and these duties are unavoidable. Such swadharma is ordained by the Lord, and this will be clarified in the 4th chapter. Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam gunakarma vibhagashaha. On the bodily plane, swadharma is called varnashrama dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Human civilization begins from the stage of varnashrama dharma, or specific duties in terms of the specific modes of nature of the body obtained. Discharging one's specific duty in any field of action in accordance with the orders of higher authorities serves to elevate one to a higher status of life. आत्मनः नाश अभावाद् एव वधाद् विकम्पितुं भेतुं न अर्हसि. You should not tremble, or you should not be frightened of killing, because the Atma has no destruction. Swadharmam api cha avekshya na vikampitum arhasi iti sambandha. And by considering your swadharma, you should not be frightened. यदृच्छया च उपपन्नं स्वर्गद्वारमपावृतं सुखिनः क्षत्रियाः पार्थ लभन्ते युद्धमीदृशम्. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. He Partha, यदृच्छाक्रमे उपस्थित अनावृत स्वर्गद्वार रूप ईदृश युद्ध जे सकल क्षत्रियगण लाभ करियाছেন তাহারাই সুখী. O son of Pritha, all those Kshatriyas who have attained the war like this, that is a gateway to Swarga, and it is an open gateway to Swarga, and it has come about somehow. Such Kshatriyas are the ones who are actually happy. Srinath Chakravarti Thakur, Kincha जेतृभ्यः सकाशात् अपि न्याययुद्धे मृतानाम् अधिकं सुखम्. अतः भीष्मादीन् हत्वा तान् प्रत्युत स्वतः अपि अधिकसुखिनः कुरु. What is this? Ityaga? Ityaha, it looks like. Printing mistake, looks like. Wait. Ityaha. Okay. yadrichayati. Moreover, uh, in a righteous war, those who die in a righteous war attain greater happiness than those who win in the righteous war. Therefore, having killed Bhishma and others, uh, you become more happy. Yadrichaya, Swarga Sadhanam, Karma Yogam, Akritva api ityarthaha. Even without engaging in Karma Yoga, which is the means to go to Swarga, you have a gateway to Swarga open right now, somehow or other. Yadrichaya. Apavritam, Apagata Avaranam. The gates are open. The normal procedure to go to Swarga is by engaging in the activities of the karma system. You engage in the activities of the karma system, then you attain happiness in your next life. Uh, when we engage in pious activities, it generates pious credits. And through pious credits, after you die in this life, then in the next life, you will be able to attain the benefits of that. The duties of the Varnashrama system are designed to give benefits in the next life by default. Okay, then अथ चेत् त्वमिमं धर्म्यं संग्रामं न करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च हित्वा पापम् अवाप्स्यसि. If, however, you do not perform this religious duty of fighting, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. Phalataha, and as a result, তুমি এই ধর্মযুদ্ধে প্রবৃত্ত না হইলে স্বীয় ধর্ম ও কীর্তি হইতে ভ্রষ্ট হইয়া পাপভোগী হইবে. If you do not engage in this dharma yuddha, then you will lose your piety and fame, and you will have to experience sins. So notice that loss of piety and loss of kirti means fame, is considered by Krishna to be disadvantageous. It's important. Righteous fame is very important. Vipakshe doshanaha atheti chaturbhi. In 4 verses beginning with text 33, Lord Krishna explains the defects in not participating in the war. Akirtim chapi bhutani kathayishyanti te vyayam sambhavitasya chakirtir maranadatirichate. People will always speak of your infamy, and for a respectable person, dishonor is worse than death. তাহা হইলে লোকে চিরকাল তোমার অকীর্তির কথা ঘোষণা করিবে. If you do not participate in this war, then in this world, for a long time, your infamy will be proclaimed. অতি প্রতিষ্ঠিত ব্যক্তির অকীর্তি মৃত্যু অপেক্ষা অধিক ক্লেশকর. For a person who is extremely established as a very respectable person, infamy is more painful than death. So the reason why Krishna brings this up is because fame is something to be achieved in this life. Swarga is to be achieved in next life. So he will not only lose entrance into Swarga, he will also lose fame. Okay, now is a good time. I think I should point out certain things. Adharma mm, is only focused on attaining aihika bhukti, enjoyment in this life, but actually it does not provide sufficient happiness in this life also, because the enjoyment is very little compared to the sufferings that one eventually undergoes. So it is not taken. Aihika bhukti is not taken very seriously. Enjoyment in one life is in the immediate life is not taken very seriously. Then karma, the activities of the varnashrama system are meant for uh, paratrika bhukti, enjoyment in the next life. Uh, it's like in India, when we want to travel by train, you book the train ticket ahead of time and then you go. Adharma is like trying to enter into a reserved compartment without a ticket. It's like ticketless travel. The Jnana system is aimed at producing liberation from material existence in one's afterlife, after one dies. Bhakti leads one to become a loving associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in one's next life, after you die. So if you notice carefully, only in the platform of adharma one is obsessed with becoming happy in this life. Everybody else is interested in next life. That is why Prabhupada keeps on saying in Vedic civilization, this life is a preparation for next life. Not this life is not meant for enjoyment. This life is meant to prepare you for next life. Even for enjoyment, that is next life. You prepare for next life's enjoyment. That is the system of karma, because you can experience more happiness in your next life if you do pious activities than what you can hope to attain in this life. So it is a proper system. So, but nevertheless, conditioned souls, their nature is such that they are still thinking of happiness in this life. Uh, so karma does come with some, actually all three of these systems, the karma system, jnana system and bhakti system, these are the final results. The final complete results are attained in the next life. Just like in schools, we have final exam and then you have interim exams also. So this is the final result. But you also have some interim results. So the karma system also produces some interim benefits in this life. The jnana system also produces some benefit in this life by bringing you to the mode of goodness. The bhakti system, that also brings you to up to prema bhakti in this life. Beyond prema, that cannot be experienced in this life. That is in next life. But these interim benefits are there. So for those who are enlightened enough to understand the importance of accepting Vedic authority, the interim benefits of karma are something that is taken into consideration. So Krishna is speaking about fame, avyayam, avyayam, anashwaram. Uh, the Arjuna's infamy will be spread for um, a long period of time. Sambhavitasya, atipratishthitasya. This is already incorporated into Rasikaranjan. भयात् रणात् उपरतं मंस्यन्ते त्वां महारथाः येषां च त्वं बहुमतो भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम्. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you insignificant. যে সকল মহারাজ তোমাকে বহুমানন করিয়া থাকেন তাহারা তোমাকে লঘু জ্ঞান করিবেন. All those Maharathas who respect you will consider you insignificant. তাহারা মনে করিবেন তুমি ভয় প্রযুক্ত Juddhe Paramukha Huyatso. They will think that you have turned away from the war, you have turned away in the war out of fear. Yesham Tvam Bahumataha Asmat Shatrur Arjunastu Mahashuraha Iti Bahu Sammana Visheha Bhutva Samprati Yuddhad Uparame Sati Laghavam Yasyasi Te Duryodhanadayaha Maharathaha Tvam Bhayadeva Ranat Uparatam Mamsyante Ityanvayaha. All those who have considered Arjuna to be an object of great respect. Oh, my enemy Arjuna is a great hero. They will now consider you to be insignificant. You will attain insignificance at the end of the war. They refers to Duryodhana and others, such Maharathas. They will think that you have desisted from this war simply out of fear. Kshatriyanam hi bhayam vina yuddha uparati hetuhu bandhu sneha adikaha na upapadyate iti matva iti bhavaha. It's implied that Kshatriyas, they, they desist from war, they get out of a war, or they don't participate in a war. It is not appropriate to think that a Kshatriya does not participate in a war for any reason other than fear, such as out of affection for one's friends and so on. So they will think like this, that Arjuna gave up this war out of fear. They will not think it is out of affection for his relatives, because Kshatriyas don't think like that. Prabhupada often explains that for them war is like a sport. Avacyavadamscha bahun vadishyanti tavahitaha nindattastava samarthyam tato dukkhat taram kim. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? তোমার বৈরী বর্গ তোমাকে কত অবক্তব্য কটু কথা কহিবে, তোমার সামর্থ্যের নিন্দা করিবে, তোমার পক্ষে ইহাপেক্ষা অধিকতর দুঃখের বিষয় আর কি আছে? Your enemies, they will speak bitter words that are not meant to be spoken. They will condemn your ability. For you, what can be more distressing than this? Avachyavadan, Kliba ityadi, Katuktihi. They will say that you are impotent, you are a eunuch. Like this, they will speak very harsh words. So one point you should note so far in all these verses, these are all glorifying the benefits of participating in Varnashrama Dharma, Swadharma, carrying out one's Swadharma. Participating in Varnashrama Dharma itself means accepting a Varnik identity, Ashramic identity for men. For women, there is Stri Dharma. So to accept one's Varnik duties and Ashrama duties, this is what is meant by participating in Varnashrama Dharma. And for women, it means to engage in Stri Dharma. Note that these verses have spoken about the benefits of this, and Krishna has criticized non-engagement in Varnashrama Dharma, what it can lead to. Taking Arjuna's position as a sample. Same thing can be extended. For Brahmanas, it's different. For Kshatriyas, it's different. Vaishyas is different. Shudras, it is different. For women also, it is different. Each has its own circle within which these criticisms will be relevant. All of this instruction has come after Lord Krishna has described the distinction between the body and the soul, and he has also indicated the reality of reincarnation according to karma by talking about vasamsi jirnani vihaya and so on. This is because Ramanujacharya has noted elsewhere that one can engage in varnashrama dharma only if you are aware that you are a soul who is not this body and who is reincarnating according to your karma, and that by engaging in varnashrama dharma in your next life you will be benefited. If you do not understand this, you will not be able to understand the benefits offered by varnashrama dharma at all. This is the problem we perceive in today's India. They are unable to relate to the prescriptions, allowances, and prohibitions of the varnas and ashramas and for women, because they do not understand the reality of the next life and the benefits that attain that come to one in one's next life if he participates in the swadharma for which he is eligible for in this life. So this is something we should keep in mind. Okay, let's proceed. हतो वा प्राप्स्यसि स्वर्गं जित्वा वा भोक्ष्यसे महीम् तस्मादुत्तिष्ठ कौन्तेय युद्धाय कृतनिश्चयः. O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. Hey Kunti Nandan, তুমি যুদ্ধে হত হইলে স্বর্গ লাভ করিবে, জয়ী হইলে পৃথিবী ভোগ করিবে. O beloved son of Kunti, if you die in this battle, you will go to Swarga. If you win in this battle, you will enjoy this earth. অতএব কৃতনিশ্চয় হইয়া যুদ্ধ করিবার জন্য উত্থান কর. Therefore, becoming determined, stand up to engage in this war, to participate in this war. ननु युद्धे मम जय एव भावीत्यपि नास्ति निश्चयः ततश्च कथं युद्धे प्रवर्तितव्यम् इत्यतः हत इति. Arjuna anticipates, no, Lord Krishna anticipates that Arjuna might be thinking, there's no certainty that I will attain a victory in this battle. So then why should I be impelled to engage in this war? So Lord Krishna speaks this verse. Whether you win in this war or you lose in this war, in either case you will be benefited. Either you will enjoy in this life here, or you will enjoy in Swarga in your next life there, somewhere else, in the heavenly planets. सुखे दुखे समे कृत्वा लाभालाभौ जया जयौ ततो युद्धाय युज्यस्व नैवं पापं अवाप्स्यसि. Do the fight for the sake of fighting without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by so doing you shall never incur sin. सुख दुख लाभालाभ हो जय पराजय के समान ज्ञान करिया युद्ध करिले पाप भागी होइते होइबे ना. If you consider happiness and distress, gain and loss, victory and defeat to be equal, and you engage in this war, you will not attain sins. You will not attain any sinful reactions. तस्मात् तव सर्वथा युद्धमेव धर्मः तदपि पापकारणम् आशंकसे तर्हि मत्तः पाप अनुत्पत्ति प्रकारं शिक्षित्वा युध्यस्व इत्याह. From every perspective, therefore, for you from every perspective, in every manner, war is dharma, and you fear that this dharma in the form of a war to be a cause of sinful reactions. Uh, Therefore, you learn from me on how to not generate sinful reactions. Then you engage in this war. सुखदुःखे समे कृत्वा तद्धेतु लाभालाभौ राज्यलाभ राज्यच्युतौ अपि तद्धेतु जयाजयौ अपि समौ कृत्वा विवेकेन तुल्य विभाव्य इत्यर्थः. You should consider happiness and distress to be equal. The cause for that is to consider is the consideration of uh, gain and loss to be equal, which means gain of a kingdom or loss of a kingdom. And the cause for that is the consideration that victory or defeat to be equal. So, to first of all, one should consider that to win this war or to lose this war is equal, and therefore to gain this kingdom or to lose this kingdom is equal, and therefore to be happy in this life or to be happy or unhappy is equal. If you consider this with discrimination, ततश्च एवंभूत साम्य लक्षणे ज्ञानवतः तव पापम न एव भवेत्. If you are in possession of spiritual knowledge which is characterized by such equanimity in thinking, then papam na eva bhavet, then you will certainly not attain any sinful reactions. Yad vakshyate, as it will be stated, lipyate nasapapena padmapatram ivambhasa. This will be stated later on. For a person who has attained spiritual realization, he is not tainted by sinful reactions, just as water does not taint a lotus leaf. The idea is that water does not stick to a lotus leaf. It does not make the lotus leaf moist. It touches and it falls off. Similarly, material contamination does not stick to a person who has attained spiritual realization. There are different levels of knowledge. There is ordinary knowledge, then there is understanding, then there is realization. So we are talking of a deeper level of knowledge here. Prabhupada also indicates in his purport here that this is seen from the spiritual perspective. So this verse already begins Krishna's consideration of spiritual principles here. Then Esha te bhi hita sankhye buddhir yoge tvimam shruno buddhya yukto yaya partha karmabandham prahasyasi. Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. सांख्य अर्थात ज्ञान संबंधिनी बुद्धिर कथा कथित होइलो. So far, there has been a discussion on spiritual intelligence, referred to by the expression Sankhya. एखने भक्ति जोग संबंधिनी बुद्धिर कथा श्रवण कर. Now, listen to intelligence fixed on bhakti yoga. So far, Krishna has spoken about the sort of discrimination one needs to have while standing on the platform of jnana. But now, Krishna is going to speak about the sort of intelligence one needs to have while standing on the platform of bhakti. हे पार्थ, তুমি ভক্তি বিষয়িনী বুদ্ধিযুক্ত হইলে সংসার ক্ষয় করণে সমর্থ হইবে. O son of Pritha, when you become when you attain the intelligence that is fixed on bhakti, then you will become capable of destroying material existence. Meaning, you will be capable of destroying your own experience of matter. Meaning that you will be capable of getting out of material existence. পরে প্রদর্শিত হইবে যে বুদ্ধিযোগ একটি মাত্র, যখন সেই বুদ্ধিযোগ কর্মের অবধিকে সীমা করিয়া লক্ষিত হয়, তখন তাহাকে কর্মযোগ বলে। যখন কর্মসীমাকে অতিক্রম করিয়া জ্ঞান সীমার অবধি পর্যন্ত ব্যাপ্তি লাভ করে, তখন তাহাকে জ্ঞান যোগ বা সাংখ্য যোগ বলে। যখন তদুভয় সীমা অতিক্রম করতঃ ভক্তিকে স্পর্শ করে, তখন তাহাকে ভক্তি যোগ বা বিশুদ্ধ ও সম্পূর্ণ বুদ্ধি যোগ বলে। It will be shown later on that buddhi yoga is only one. Buddhi yoga literally means a yoga which leads to spiritual realization. So when that buddhi yoga has as its final limit, as its upper limit, karma, then it is, when it is characterized in this manner, then that is known as karma yoga. When it goes past the boundary of karma and it extends up to the limit of jnana, then that process is called jnana yoga or sankhya yoga. When it crosses both of these boundaries and touches bhakti, then it is known as bhakti yoga or pure and complete buddhi yoga. Okay, now let me set out some things to make it clear. In the Ramanuja system, how can I show this? Okay, they talk about this. Their explanation of yoga is very, very simple actually, because it is in line with the teachings of Yamunacharya. Ramanujacharya's authority is Yamunacharya, who has written a summary of Bhagavad Gita in 32 verses where he talks about what a yoga is. Yoga itself means combination. Combination of what? It's a combination of karma, jnana and bhakti. This combination is called yoga. So when one's karma is predominant, which I will indicate like this, then this combination is known as karma yoga. Then when one practices, of course, then there is adharma, which is rejected. Therefore, I am not writing it. When one engages in this combination, he is spending most of his time in the activities of karma, and he loses the desire for the benefits of karma. That is known as karma phala tyaga. He gives up the result for the benefits that come from karma. We already know karma leads to benefits in this life a little bit and a lot of benefits in the next life. So if one gives up the desire to be benefited by karma, then that is known as karma phalatyaga. But you cannot engage in an activity without any desire for a result. So we will learn that karma actually has two types of benefits. The benefits that are given up here are the material benefits of karma. The spiritual benefit of karma is that it purifies our heart from lust, anger, greed. That benefit of karma is very nice. That we don't want to give up. So when one engages like this, with a desire to become free from the desire for the material benefits of karma, and with the desire for purification of heart, and he only wants to do this much, then it is called karma yoga. Uh, Simple. I think that in ISKCON we are not clear about the Varnic divisions, but we are clear about Ashramic divisions. So let me take a typical example. When a person wants to get married, he wants to enter into Grihastha Ashrama. That Ashrama karma or the Ashrama dharma. There are several benefits of the Grihastha Ashrama if he engages in them in this life and next life. We know that from scriptures, we know that. But if a person is entering into the Grihastha Ashrama without a desire for attaining the pious credits which are generated by proper engagement in Grihastha Ashrama dharma, so he does not want in his next life to enjoy, go to heavenly planets and so on. And in this life also he is not really interested in attaining the material happiness that can come out of Grihastha life. But rather, he gets married with the desire to become purified. Then you can say that that person is having the desire for karma phalatyaga. Then one comes to the next level. From once one passes through this stage, then he is expected to make his jnana activities predominant. Study Shastra, which promote liberation, and he starts obeying the instructions there. The scriptures which promote liberation also promote certain characteristics. Even in Bhagavad Gita, we will see in the 13th chapter, Lord Krishna will talk about 20 duties of the jnana system there also. To see everything equally, to be very pessimistic about material life. So many things. There are so many things. Amanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa, kshanti, arjavam, and so on. So many things are there. So then he comes to the platform of Jnana Yoga. Here also, the benefit of Jnana is known as Jnana Phala. But when one gives up the desire for that benefit of Jnana known as liberation, he gives up the desire for liberation. Then why is engaged in the activity of Jnana? Because Jnana leads to renunciation from material existence. Complete. It leads to, gives one a strong desire to not enjoy the material world. Just as the desire for purification of heart is favorable for bhakti, similarly, to be free from a desire to enjoy this world is also favorable for bhakti. So having come to this stage, then he gives up his desire for liberation. Why? Because he wants to come to this point. This is technically called Bhakti Yoga. In all these positions, there is no engagement in adharma. Adharma is characterized by aparadha and papa, sinful activities, meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, gambling, speaking untruth, being duplicitous, being diplomatic. So many things are there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives a list of sinful activities which should be avoided, even in the karma stage, what to speak of the jnana stage, or what to speak of the bhakti stage. So now he comes to the platform of bhakti yoga. So if one is only here, then he is called the karma yogi. When he has reached this much, jnana yogi, now he is a bhakti yogi. So now there is no such thing as bhakti phalatyaga. That is stupidity. Because the end result of bhakti, one engages in bhakti to please the Supreme Lord. That is the very nature of the jiva. So there is no question of giving up one's own nature, which cannot be given up. So when one comes to this point, then he becomes more renounced. Then he comes to this point. He gives up his engagement in karma. Then he gives up his engagement in jnana also. This is what is known as, in Gaudiya Vaishnava language, we call it Kevala Sadhana Bhakti. In the Ramanuja system, this is known as Parabhakti. Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. That is this. Brahmabhuta Prasannatmana Shochati Nakangshati Samasarveshu Bhuteshu and then what? Labhate Mad Bhaktim Param. That is this. Then from this, one goes to the next level of bhakti, which in our system we call Bhava Bhakti. In their system, they refer to it as Parajnana. Parabhakti, Parajnana. Bhaktiya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvataha tato mam tatvato gyatva. That is this. Okay, then one comes to the what they call Parama Bhakti, which we call Prema Bhakti. Vishate Tadanantaram. So this is the procedure according to the Ramanuja scheme, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur's explanation matches this very neatly. So if it comes up to here, it's Karma Yoga. Strictly speaking, this is Nishkama Karma Yoga. Jnana Yoga. This is, in fact, this is going beyond Jnana Yoga. In fact, Bhakti Yoga. This is all different levels of Bhakti Yoga. So only when we begin to engage most of our time in the activities of Bhakti, it is considered Bhakti Yoga. We will see this very prominently in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's writings. Of course, you don't have to go through all these procedures to come up. If one uninterruptedly, non-duplicitously surrenders unto someone who is more advanced, he can directly come up also. That we can see Narada Muni, he is engaging Mrigari directly in Kevala Sadhana Bhakti. So this is possible. And he also submitted, so therefore it was possible. That was Prabhupada's initial attempt. Initially he wanted people to come as soon as possible to this platform. Then when he realized that it is too difficult, then he started talking about Varnashrama Dharma with increasing focus, with increasing emphasis. And towards the end he said that was 50% of his unfinished mission, because Varnashrama Dharma is extremely helpful. Extremely helpful. Okay, then we continue. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Upadishtam Jnana Yogam Upasamharati Esheti. So now he concludes his instruction on Jnana Yoga with this text, text 39. Samyak, printing mistake. Samyak khyayate, prakashyate, vastu tattvam anena iti sankhyam samyak jnanam. Sankhya here refers to complete knowledge. It indicates that Krishna has spoken complete knowledge, that by which one can completely realize or know, one can know about the truths of reality. Tasmin karaniya buddhiresha kathita. The intelligence or the determination or thought process that one should have when one is on this platform of knowledge, that has been discussed so far. Adhuna yoge, bhakti yoge, imam vakshamanam buddhim karaniyam shrunu, yaya bhakti vishayin ya buddhya yuktaha sahitaha karmabandham samsaram. Now, listen to the sort of intelligence which you should be fixed up in yoga, meaning bhakti yoga. This will be discussed now. by the intelligence which is fixed on bhakti, one will be able to cross over samsara, material existence. How one will be able to cross over material existence through bhakti, we will come to that in the 18th chapter in detail. नेहाभिक्रमणाशोस्ति प्रत्यवायो न विद्यते स्वल्पमप्यस्य धर्मस्य त्रायते महतो भयात्. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Bhakti joger অভিক্রম ব্যর্থ হয় না ও তাহাতে প্রত্যবায়ও নাই. In the when one stops one's beginning of bhakti yoga, or when one stops one practice of bhakti yoga, there is no loss, nor is there a reverse reaction. Okay, in certain practices, if you do things correct, you are benefited. If you do things wrong, or if you don't do it, you will be punished. It's just like in certain examinations, they have questions such that if you answer correctly, you get plus points. If you answer wrongly, you get minus points. So you don't get minus points in bhakti yoga when you attempt bhakti yoga. তাহার স্বল্প অনুষ্ঠানও অনুষ্ঠাতাকে সংসার রূপ মহাভয় হইতে পরিত্রাণ করে. Even a slight engagement in bhakti yoga delivers the practitioner from the great fear known as material existence. Material existence is the cause of great fear, so therefore it is equated with great fear. Note that it's talking of bhakti yoga, which means starting from this onwards, not talking of these ones. Here also there is daily engagement in the activities of jnana and bhakti. Here also there is daily engagement in bhakti. Here also there is daily engagement in bhakti. But this is a lot of bhakti, in fact. This becomes a this becomes a predominant force. One is also, at this stage, one is still carrying out his activities of karma and jnana. So, he's a man, he's carrying out his varna and ashrama duties at least a little bit. And he's still carrying out his jnana activities also. Here also, similarly, jnana is carried out here. Bhakti is also carried out here. Bhakti is carried out here also. Our tendency is to consider anybody engaging in bhakti with the desire for prema bhakti to be a Vaishnava. Some of our acharyas have taken that position. They have compassionately considered such persons to be Vaishnavas, bhaktas. But in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's technical language, only a person who has come to this platform, these persons are known as bhakti yogis. Prior to that, they can be accepted as aspiring bhakti yogis. So, vast majority of us are actually aspiring bhakti yogis. But even that is good. But right now we need to know the glories of bhakti yoga. Atra yogaha dvividhaha. In this regard, yoga is of two types. Shravana kirtanadi bhakti rupaha. Bhakti in the form of Shravanam, Kirtanam, and so on. Okay, now what is this talking about? This is actually talking about. Wait. What's this? It's talking of this particular verse. we'll go back. Okay, let me search for it once again. Shravanam, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu. Kirtanam also. Smaranam, remembering them. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Archanam, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia. Vandanam, offering prayers to the Lord. Dasyam, becoming his servant. Sakhyam, considering the Lord one's best friend and surrendering everything unto him. In other words, serving him with body, mind, and words. Atmanivedanam. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. If one engages in these 9 activities for Lord Vishnu and no one else, then it is accepted as the greatest learning. So when one does this only for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to please him, then it is accepted as pure devotion service. But here right now we are talking about these exact activities. Shravanam, Vishnu Shravanam. See, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu means Vishnu Shravanam, hearing about Vishnu. Kirtanam means Vishnu Kirtanam. So this word Vishnu, Jiva Goswami says, should be applied everywhere. So Smaranam Vishnu, Pada Sevanam Vishnu, Archanam Vishnu, Vandanam Vishnu, Dasyam Vishnu, Sakhyam Vishnu, Atmani Vedanam Vishnu. So these activities, they are one form of bhakti. Shravana Kirtanadi Bhakti Rupaha. So this is bhakti in the form of Shravanam Kirtanam and so on. Shri Bhagavad Arpita Nishkama Karma Rupascha. And engagement in karma without a desire for experiencing the benefits due to karma. That means one only wants purification of heart. And he does that for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is actually engaging in the activity of karma here. He is not engaging in the activity of bhakti, but he is engaging in the activity of karma for the pleasure of Sri Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is also accepted as a yoga. That is accepted as yoga. In fact, as will be clear, the expression Buddhi Yoga will be used to refer to Bhakti Yoga and this kind of Nishkama Karma Yoga also. Of course, when we talk of Nishkama Karma Yoga, we are talking of this. So he also engages in Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu on a daily basis. Do not think that is only engaging in the activity of karma to please Krishna. He is also daily engaging in the activity of jnana. He is also daily engaging in the activity of bhakti. But pradhanyata vyapadesha bhavanti. Labels are given according to what is predominant. Because in this combination, karma is predominant. Therefore, this combination is called karma yoga. So most of his day goes in the activities of karma. And of course, since he does not desire any material benefit from karma, he only wants purification of heart. He basically wants anartha nivritti in ISKCON language. For that sake, he is doing this. And by doing this, you pray. After doing this, you pray to the Supreme Lord. I have done this. May this satisfy you. Please give me purification of heart. Of course, that is done in karma and jnana, bhakti, everything. But because the karma activity takes most of his time, then that combination is called karma yoga. So, this engagement in the activity of bhakti, that is sometimes accepted as yoga, a means for spiritual realization. But Nishkama karma is also accepted when it is offered unto the Supreme Lord. That means when it is done for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, that is also accepted as yoga. In other words, the basic idea is this. You may be engaging in your particular material duty, but why are you doing it? There may be several reasons why you're doing it. You may be doing it for your pleasure. Uh, Obviously, a person who has avoided adharma and engaging in the activity of karma, he must be knowing about reincarnation and the law of karma. So he must be desiring something which will benefit him in this life and in the next life. That is why he's doing it. But that person, he wants to satisfy himself. But if he wants to actually be benefited, he, after doing it, he has to report to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, saying, I'm doing this only for your pleasure. Of course, I have a desire for material benefit, but I've done this. It is just like you do what your boss tells you to do, you do it, and then you report back to him saying, say, my dear sir, I did what you told me to do. So after this is actually done on a daily basis, that I'm doing this is for the satisfaction of Lord Narayana. That's actually a verse in the 11th canto. There are some prayers which are similar to that verse. Kayena vacha manasendriya and so on. So there is this basic idea that I'm doing this, but by doing this, may the Lord be happy and may He bless me. Okay. So at the lowest level also they are doing it. Sakama, that's called. With a materialistic motive, they are primarily engaging in the activities of Varnashrama Dharma. That is just for material happiness. But even they pray to the Supreme Lord. I'm doing this, please be satisfied and please benefit me materially. I want to enjoy. So in next life, the Supreme Lord gives him that. And if a person wants spiritual progress, Nishkama version, then again they also pray to the Supreme Lord. I'm doing this, please be satisfied with this, please give. This is very, very important. Those who are engaged in bhakti, even in Kevala Sadhana Bhakti, they are doing the same thing in bhakti activities. They'll engage in bhakti activities and they'll pray to the Supreme Lord. On your instruction, I've given up everything else. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. I've given up everything else. I'm only engaged in the activity of bhakti. Please be satisfied with me. Please help me progress in Krishna consciousness. So that element of always begging the Supreme Lord for a benediction, that is common at all statuses. It is simply a sign of accepting one's subordinate position. So therefore, Sri Bhagavad Arpita Nishkama Karma Rupascha. So therefore, one should offer to the Supreme. This is the meaning of offering to the Supreme Lord. Tatra, this explanation, I am deriving it from Baladev Vidyabhushan's explanation of this in 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Tatra, no spelling mistake. Tatra karmanyevadhikara ityatah prag bhakti yoga eva nirupyate. So, in this chapter, prior to the verse beginning karmanyevadhikaraste, the buddhi yoga that is described is actually bhakti yoga. Nistrai gunyo bhavarjuna ityukte. Because Lord Krishna will tell Arjuna, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nistraigunyo Bhavarjuna. Go beyond the three gunas. Because Lord Krishna has stated that, it is understood that he is telling him to engage in Bhakti Yoga. He is not telling him to engage in Jnana Yoga or Karma Yoga. Bhaktereva Trigurnati Tatvat Tayaiva Purushaha Nistraigunyo Bhavati Tyekadasha Skandhe Prasiddhe. Because it is well known that bhakti alone is beyond the three modes of material nature. And it is only by engagement in bhakti that a person becomes freed from the three modes. Now, the Acharya will explain this in fascinating detail. This is very well known from the 11th canto. From where in the 11th canto? From the Uddhava Gita. Should I go to that now or should I leave it later on? Right. Canto. leave it because the Acharya himself will explain. He'll give so many evidences. ज्ञानकर्मणोस्तु सात्विकत्व राजसत्वाभ्याम गुण्यत्व अनुपपत्तेः भगवदर्पितलक्षणा भक्तिस्तु कर्मणः वैफल्य अभावमात्रं प्रतिपादयति न तु स्वस्य भक्ति व्यपदेशं प्राधान्य अभावादेव. Jnana and karma, however, being sattvika and rajasika respectively, it is inappropriate to consider them to be beyond the three modes of material nature. And that bhakti which is characterized by offering one's karma to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is presented only to make sure that karma does not become useless. This needs some explanation. See, why one has to do like this? Why can't he simply engage in pure karma alone? Why he has to engage in this daily activity of jnana and bhakti also? That is because if he does not accept the prescriptions and prohibitions of jnana and specifically of bhakti, even if he engages in karma, he will not attain the material benefits of karma. Even the interim benefit in this life he will not get. What to speak of next life? He will get no pious credit, nothing he will get. Karma gives you benefit only when you perform it side by side along with the activities of bhakti. In other words, everybody should engage in bhakti. You cannot avoid that. That is why here, as I often quote, in the common duties, you will find 21 items of jnana and 9 items of bhakti. And these are considered to be common duties to be followed by all human beings. This appears in which section? This appears in a section which talks about how to engage in Varnashrama Dharma. In Varnashrama Dharma, we know very well, and first of all, there are duties for men, there are duties for women. For duties for men, there is Varna duties, Ashrama duties. Then, of course, for both duties for men and duties for women, there is condition of crisis and non-crisis. But there are duties which are common to all men and women. And that is where this come in. So if one does not engage in one's common duty, but one engages in one's uncommon duty, like for instance, I may be a Vaishya Grihastha and somebody else may be, let us say, a Brahmana Sannyasi. Okay. So I have to execute my Brahmanical duty and my Sannyas duty. That person has to execute his Brahmanical duty and Sannyas duty. I have to execute my Vaishya duty and Grihastha duty. But side by side, I also have to engage in the activities of jnana and bhakti. Without that, I will receive no benefit from engaging in this Vaishya duty or the Grihastha duty. Similarly, that person will achieve no benefit by accepting the duties of a Brahmana Sannyasi unless he accepts the rulings of jnana and bhakti also. So therefore, because if he does not accept the process of bhakti, it will be useless. Therefore, bhakti is there just to make sure that you get the benefit of karma. It is not, and that person also is engaging in that activity of karma to attain the unique benefits of karma. So just to help that person attain the benefits of karma is engaging in bhakti. It is, and therefore this activity of Bhagavad Arpita Nishkama Karma, that cannot be referred to as bhakti because pradhanya abhavadeva, because bhakti is not predominant there. Bhakti is not predominant here. Bhakti is predominant from this point onwards. Of course, here it's exclusively bhakti. Yadicha भगवदर्पितं कर्म अपि भक्तिरेव इति मतं तदा कर्म किं स्यात्? If one argues, no, that activity which is offered unto the Supreme Lord, in other words, that activity which is when that activity of karma, if one argues that the activity of karma that is performed to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead itself is bhakti, that is the definition of bhakti. If you think like that, then what is then karma? Yad bhagavad anarpitam karma tadeva karma iti chet. And then if one says, no, karma is the activity of the karma system which is not performed to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is not offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is called karma. But when you perform the same to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is bhakti. Chet, no, it is not so. Naishkarmyam napyachyuta bhava varjitam na shobhate jnanamalam niranjanam kutah punah shashvat abhadrameshware nacharpitam karma yadapya karanam iti narada uktya tasya vayarthya pratipadanat. Because there is a statement of Narada Muni in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Let's have a look at this. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? So here, karma which is not connected to the service of the Supreme Lord has been condemned here. Okay. So from this we understand that the activity of the karma system that is not performed for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is considered useless. So then because it is useless, there is no point in that being the karma taught in the karma shastras, because the Vedic scripture do not teach anything useless. They teach something which is useful. This is useless means is literally useless. Chari Varnashrami, what is that verse? Here is a verse. Jodi Krishna nahi bhaje, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chari Varnashrami Jodi Krishna nahi bhaje, Sakarma korite se Rourave podi moje. The followers of the Varnashrama institution accept the regulative principles of the 4 social orders and 4 spiritual orders. If, however, one carries out the regulative principles of these orders but does not render transcendental service to Krishna, he falls into a hellish condition of material life. And then there is evidence from the 11th canto. Mukha bahur padebhya purushasya ashramai saha chatvaro jagyere varna gunair vipradaya prathak. From the mouth of Brahma, the Brahmanical order has come into existence. Similarly, from his arms, the Kshatriyas have come. From his waist, the Vaishyas have come. And from his legs, the Shudras have come. These 4 orders and their spiritual counterparts, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas, combine to make human society complete. Ya esham, this is also next verse in the 11th canto. Ya esham purusham sakshat atma prabhavam ishvaram na bhajanti avajananti sthanad brashta patantyata. If one simply maintains an official position in the 4 varnas and ashramas but does not worship the Supreme Lord Vishnu, he falls down from his puffed up position into a hellish condition. He falls down, patantyataha, he falls downward. So by not engaging in bhakti, you fall down, even if you engage in karma. So therefore, that kind of karma is definitely not prescribed, because karma shastras are prescribed for material upliftment over the lifetimes. And you can be materially uplifted only if you also perform bhakti. So therefore, since you are engaging in one activity which requires the help of another activity known as bhakti in order to derive the material benefit that is derived from this activity cannot be called bhakti. That is Chakravarti Thakur's logic. तस्मात् अत्र भगवत् चरण माधुर्य प्राप्ति साधनीभूता केवल श्रवण कीर्तनादि लक्षणा एव भक्तिर निरूप्यते. Therefore, that which becomes the means to attain the sweetness of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is characterized exclusively by engagement in Shravanam, Kirtanam, and so on, that alone is described here as bhakti. Yatha. So therefore, that alone is bhakti. So bhakti here only refers to those activities, Vishnu Shravanam, Vishnu Kirtanam, Vishnu Padasevanam, Vishnu Vandanam, and so on. Only these activities are accepted as Vishnu Bhakti. This is very important, because in other sampradayas they have these other conceptions of what is Hari Bhakti. We are very, very clear on what is Hari Bhakti. Hari Bhakti refers to activities that connect you immediately to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is not that, this misconception is there in ISKCON also. They think it's all in the consciousness Prabhu. So I'm putting petrol in some petrol bunk, and I'm thinking that I'm engaged in bhakti because it's all in the consciousness Prabhu. It is not in the consciousness, it's in the activity also. You need to do the right activity with the right attitude. Of course, bhakti also you need to do with the desire to please the Supreme Lord. Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. So you must, that Anukulyena indicates the internal attitude. Krishnanushilanam indicates specific material activities. Those activities are well defined in Shastra. Only those activities you can engage in, only with that particular attitude. And when you have the right attitude with that right activity, both of which are well specified in Shastra, then it is called Krishna Bhakti. Otherwise, it is not Krishna Bhakti. Yatha nishkama karma yoga api nirupayitavyah. Ubhav api etau buddhi yoga shabda vachyo gyeyo. And the Nishkama Karma Yoga system also needs to be will be described, and both of these, bhakti and Nishkama Karma, both of these are referred to by the expression Buddhi Yoga. This should be understood. Dadami Buddhi Yogam tam yena mam upayantite durena hyavaram karma Buddhi Yoga dhananjaya iti cha uktehe. Because you see, the expression Buddhi Yoga is used in two places. Tatami Buddhi Yogam tam yenamam upayantite. Certainly this refers to Bhakti Yoga. Krishna gives one Bhakti Yoga, which means Krishna helps one progress from here to here to here to here to here. So here Buddhi Yoga, the expression Buddhi Yoga has been used to refer to Bhakti Yoga. Then Durena hi avaram karma Buddhi Yoga dhananjaya. We'll see this verse. Give up from a distance these inferior activities on the strength of Buddhi Yoga. So you will find Buddhi Yoga used in both of these senses. Atha nirguna shravana kirtana adi bhakti yogasya mahatmyamaha. Then Lord Krishna states the glory of Shravanam, Kirtanam, and so on, which constitutes Bhakti Yoga, which is beyond the three gunas. He is talking about the actual element of Bhakti here itself. You see, he's actually talking of this form of Bhakti Yoga, because this is pure Bhakti. In his Bhagavatam commentary, he gives this example that consider milk. Milk by itself is milk, but you can mix milk with different things. You can mix it with water. You can mix it with some dust or different things. And that entire combination is also called milk. Therefore, we have expressions like this is diluted milk, okay, which we call milk only. But it is understood that diluted milk is the original milk plus water. So sometimes we refer to the elements by particular names. Sometimes we refer to the combinations by those particular names when they are predominant. Sometimes when we are talking of karma, we are talking of this karma element alone. Like when we say that karma is described in 7th canto, 11th chapter, in terms of the 4 varnas, 4 ashramas, and the duties of women. So there we are talking of only the karma element. The karma element plus jnana element plus bhakti element put together leads to the karma yoga combination. So here you have a combination which is also sometimes referred to as karma. But we should remember, now we are talking of karma yoga. But it is referring to a combination of the karma element and jnana element and bhakti element. So for sake of clarity, I will use these expressions: karma element, jnana element, bhakti element, and the karma yoga combination. I will use expressions like this, or the karma combination. By karma combination, what I mean is a combination of karma, jnana, bhakti, where karma is predominant. Then this would be the jnana combination, and this would be the bhakti combination. This is also the bhakti combination. Whereas when I talk about the bhakti element here, the jnana element here, or the karma element within the karma combination. So ultimately, you have to engage in the bhakti element only. Give up the jnana element, give up the karma element. Adharma has never been accepted as an element at all. Dharma is rejected even before. It is just thrown out right in the beginning, because it is an obstacle for attainment of karma phala, jnana phala, and bhakti phala. Okay, so now Lord Krishna begins to talk about the glory of bhakti yoga, which is beyond the 3 modes, which consists of Shravanam, Kirtanam, and so on. Iha bhakti yoge abhikrame आरंभ मात्रे कृते अपि अस्य भक्ति योगस्य नाशः न अस्ति ततः प्रत्यवायः च न स्यात्. In bhakti yoga, even with an inauguration of bhakti yoga, when that is done, there is no loss of bhakti yoga. Tatascha pratyavayascha na syat, and there is no reverse. यथा कर्मयोगे आरंभं कृत्वा कर्म अननुष्ठितवतः कर्म नाश प्रत्यवायो स्याताम इति भावः. It is implied here that in karma yoga, in karma combination, when one begins engaging in the karma combination of activities, for that person, if he does not engage in karma at any point in time, then he loses the benefit of karma, and there is a loss. He gets a reverse. He gets a minus point. Nanu tarhi tasya bhakti anushthatuhu. I think that's a printing mistake here. Right. Okay, let me take it as it is. But is it like this? Okay. Nanu tarhi tasya bhakti anushthatuhu kamasya samuchita bhaktya karanat bhakti phalam tu naiva syat. Objection. For that person who is engaged in bhakti, When he is not completely engaged in the activity of bhakti, he does not attain the result of bhakti, certainly. Tatraha swalpamiti. In this regard, it is stated swalpam. अस्य धर्मस्य स्वल्पमपि आरंभ समये या किंचिन्मात्री भक्तिः अभूत् सा अपि इति अर्थः. When one engages in this dharma, even a little bit, even when he just begins, whatever little bhakti he engages in, that much itself, mahato bhayat samsarat rayate eva, it certainly delivers one from the great fear known as material existence. Yannama sakrit shravanat pukkashopi vimuchyate samsarat ityadi shravanat. Because we hear from the scriptures that that person who even once chants the holy name, of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given an explanation to statements like this. So we understand this refers to even once when he chants the pure holy name, then even a pukkasha, even a person who is born in a very low, very sinful family, even that person becomes liberated from material existence. There are many statements to this effect, ityadi. Ajamilado tatha darshanacha. And we see this in the personalities such as Ajamila, who only engaged in a little bit of bhakti and he was liberated from material existence. न ह्यंगोपक्रमे ध्वंसः मद्धर्मस्य उद्धवाण्वपि मया व्यवसितः सम्यं निर्गुणत्वादनाशिषः. Okay, let me look at this verse. This is from Uddhava Gita. No, I'm making a mistake here. Yes. My dear, okay, this one. My dear Uddhava, because I have personally established it, this process of devotional service unto me is transcendental and free from any material motivation. Certainly, a devotee never suffers even the slightest loss by adopting this process. This is 11, 29, 20. इति भगवतः वाक्येन सह अस्य वाक्यस्य ऐकार्थ्यमेव दृश्यते. The reason why Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given this explanation to this verse is because the current verse of Bhagavad Gita has the same meaning as this verse of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the Uddhava Gita. This is explicitly speaking about Bhakti Yoga. So this chapter is about Bhakti Yoga. And this verse has identical meaning with the current verse of Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given this explanation. So he's saying the same meaning is seen here and there in both of this. Okay, I'll stop with this. I should continue from this kintu. Okay.